Today we're traveling across the globe, virtually of course. We can't actually take you around the world, but we're discovering a bunch of hidden cities that were on Earth, rediscovered.
You're gonna discover them today when we tell you all about them.
Alright, we're gonna start off in Israel with Atlit-Yam, an ancient submerged Neolithic village off the coast of Atlit. The site was discovered in 1984 and dates back to the period between 6900 and 6300 BCE. It's one of the oldest and most well-preserved submerged villages in the entire world. The village was established by a community of early farmers and fishermen along the Mediterranean coast. It was a thriving settlement with houses made using a form of construction using woven sticks and mud plaster. Here there was agriculture, fishing, hunting, and trading. It was a prosperous community in the Neolithic era, and a lot of the artifacts are well preserved to this day. Tools, pottery, even human bones. The village sank around 7,000 years ago, and they're not exactly sure why, because 7,000 years is a bit of a while back. Could have been a number of things though, but most likely the sea levels rose, or there could have been a massive tidal wave that caused the ancient village to gradually sink into the waters of the Mediterranean.
Next on our list today we have Halaik, aka the real-life Atlantis. That is, if you don't believe that Atlantis is real. If you do believe in Atlantis, however, Halaik is just another city that once held great mythical power and was lost to the power of water and the gods' will. Only difference, of course, is that Halaik has actually been found. The city, discovered in the late 1980s, was lost in 373 BC after the entirety of Halaik was lost in a matter of hours due to natural forces. However, Greek mythology tells a different story. It is believed that the residents of Halaik had driven the Ionian tribe out of their city. The Ionian tribe, who just so happened to be extremely dedicated worshippers of Poseidon, god of the sea. Do you see where I'm going with this? Furious with the tribe's departure, Poseidon dragged the entire city underwater in just one single night. While this was a widely accepted reason for the city's disappearance for many years, the team who discovered the site actually determined that an earthquake had liquefied the area, causing the ground to release water that consumed the entire city.
Next up we have Shi Cheng, aka the Lion City in China. There are some incredible images of this lost city online. You're probably seeing them right as we speak. I didn't edit this, I don't know what you're looking at right now, but I mean, just look at it. This is really cool. This city is located beneath the Chandao Lake in the Zhejiang province. The city dates back over 1,300 years and was erected during the Eastern Han Dynasty. The city was submerged in 1959 to make way for a hydroelectric dam. So unlike a lot of the cities on this list, the Lion City was actually intentionally flooded. The city has remained submerged for decades, hidden beneath the lake's waters, but it's been incredibly well preserved. There are all these intricate, ornate stone sculptures and archways, just beautiful. It's no surprise that the underwater city has become a popular destination for tourists, and I have just added a new travel destination to my seemingly never-ending list. I just gotta learn to scuba dive.
Next up we have Dwarka, yet another sunken city, this time believed to be the sacred home of Hindu deity Krishna, the god of compassion, protection, and love, who is said to have lived on Earth 5,000 years ago and appears in many Hindu sacred texts, including the Bhagavad Gita. It is also believed that the city of Dwarka was built under the direct order of Krishna, who demanded the city be made of crystal, silver, and emerald, and that it contained 16,108 palaces for his 16,108 queens. It is said that the city was lost after being destroyed in an epic battle between Krishna and King Salva, the king of Salva, who used blasts of energy to demolish Krishna's home. While the whole thing might just sound like one big myth, the city actually exists. In the 1930s, the search for the city began, and in 1963, while exploring the area in which the city was said to be lost, researchers came across the ruins of a city that matched the description of Dwarka. Although it was not made up of 16,000 plus silver castles, the layout of the ruins quite closely matched the description of Krishna's design. Not only that, but indicators have led archaeologists to believe that the city, which collapsed into the water during the 2nd millennium BC, may have actually been built 9,000 years ago instead of 5, which would make Dwarka, one of the busiest seaports in the world during its peak, one of the oldest cities in the world altogether.
Vinland was the name of a mythical Viking settlement to the east. At least it was once thought to be mythical. Vinland really did exist. It sits in Newfoundland, Canada. Vikings from Greenland arrived in Canada long before Christopher Columbus did and made a settlement in what is now called the Landau Meadows. Leif Erikson and his crew arrived at the tip of Newfoundland in 1000 AD, becoming the first European to set foot on the continent of America and constructing the only known Viking settlement in the continent. For centuries, this place that was referenced in the Vinland sagas was thought of as a myth or a legend, but in 1960, the settlement was rediscovered. Real archaeological evidence of the fjord described in ancient Viking literature. It makes sense why the Vikings would have felt so at home here, too. The landscape is rocky, the winter is similar, they would have been very used to the climate.
Next up, we have the city of Sigiriya, a palace built in the 5th century AD by King Kassapa on top of a boulder that was 200 meters tall, that to enter required a person to walk up a large staircase and through the jaws of a lion. While the palace was grand, it was also short-lived, because not long after the construction of the city was complete, Kassapa's brother, Moggallana, attacked Sigiriya. Kassapa's army deserted him and his wives leapt from the top of the boulder to their deaths. Sigiriya was conquered by Moggallana and his army and left behind as a monument to their success. In the 1800s, European archaeologists investigating the story decided to go out looking for the forgotten castle, and in 1831 they found it. And there really was a gigantic lion guarding it, only it was made of brick and plaster. On the inside of the castle, archaeologists found incredible archaeological structures for their time, of course, and so the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization decided to declare the city of Sigiriya the 8th wonder of the world. Take that, Moggallana.
Next, we head to Peru with the lost city of Machu Picchu, which was constructed around 1450 and then abandoned around 1572. It was a turbulent time with the Spanish invading, and this is often believed to be the main reason the residents were forced to relocate. We don't know exactly why, but it probably had something to do with that. But in 1911, the site was rediscovered, and it's been a tourist attraction ever since. The ancient city sits in the Andes Mountains, and it's absolutely stunning. From pictures anyway, I've never been. That's what people say though. All the stones are precisely cut and fit together without mortar. Some of these stones weigh over 50 tons too, and were somehow transported from quarries that were miles away. There are also advanced water management systems, and then you have the Intihuatana stone, which is this carved piece of rock with a really bizarre shape. Looking at it, it's hard to guess what this thing may have been used for, but a lot of archaeologists think it would have been used in astronomy, as this was a big part of Inca culture.
Next up, Leptis Magna, the ancient Roman city that became lost in the 6th century AD after the Arabian invasion. But let's take a step back. The city was built in 7th century BC and grew and grew and grew until it became a massive city, which was considered to be one of the most important parts of the Roman Empire during the rule of Septimus Severus, and I'm not talking about the guy from Harry Potter. After the invasion, however, the city was left abandoned and in ruins, and eventually one of the most important pieces of Roman history was lost, buried deep underneath the drifting sands, until 1,200 years later, that is, when in the 1920s it was found again. The ruins almost perfectly preserved thanks to the protection of the sands. It is, in my opinion, one of the coolest archaeological excavations I have ever seen, because it's an absolutely massive city, and it's in pretty much perfect condition, other than of course the damage caused during the invasion. Today the entire city has been unearthed, and after being untouched and unaltered for so many years, walking through it is like taking a step back through time. Like, James, I don't actually know that from personal experience, it's just what I've read, but I'd like to see it.
Next up, we have what was once a pirate town, which is just cool. Port Royal is a historic town on the southeastern coast of Jamaica. It was founded in 1518 by the Spanish. It's one of the oldest European settlements in the Americas. The town was a major hub for shipping and trade during the 17th century and became a notorious hotspot for pirates and privateers. It was a base for some of the most famous pirates at the time, like Henry Morgan. The town's wealth and reputation grew because of piracy, smuggling, and trade, making it a prosperous but somewhat lawless place. But the pirate party ended in 1692 when a massive earthquake struck Port Royal, causing a lot of the town to sink into the sea. The earthquake, along with hurricanes and fires, led to the decline of the town, but some of the buildings do still stand today, and what remains of Port Royal is now a tourist destination. Visitors can explore the remnants of the town, like the Giddy House, which is this tilted building that survived the earthquake and still stands at this odd angle. There's also, of course, the Port Royal Archaeological Museum, a pirate museum. I mean, that's just awesome.
And finally, we have Heraklion, yet another sunken city. This time an ancient Egyptian city mentioned countless times through Greek mythology, most notably as the city where Heracles, son of Zeus, took his first steps into Africa. It is also the place where Paris and Helen of Troy hid from Menelaus prior to the Trojan War. The city, which was during its peak one of Egypt's most important ports, was lost for thousands of years until the early 2000s when divers came across its ruins while exploring off the coast of Egypt. At first they came across a piece of an ancient statue, and then full statues, and then jewels, and then the ruins of an ancient Egyptian temple. It was then that they realized that they had discovered something grand, and they got the big guns involved. Researchers discovered that many areas of the city were in fact still intact, and they were even able to transcribe hieroglyphics found in the submerged city believed to have been lost after an earthquake and subsequent tsunami took it all out. Hieroglyphics that described ancient Egyptian tax laws. There really is no running from taxes.
Ancient Egyptian tax laws. Not the funnest thing you're expecting to find in ancient Egypt. They're cover mummies, curses, tax laws. Well, with all that said, folks, we'll catch you next time.
That we will.